In this video, I'm going to be talking about the four-film installment from 1962, Boccaccio 70, which was directed by four of the greatest Italian filmmakers of all time, Vittorio De Sica, Federico Fellini, Luchino Visconti, and of course, Mario Monicelli. And it starred three of the greatest, most well-known actresses of all time, Romy Schneider, Sophia Loren, and Anita Ekberg. I really love this series, and it's 3.5 hours, but it's four different films, and they're all about 40-50 minutes each. So you can watch them in two sittings or even one at a time, which is what I did. I actually watched them one at a time, and the first one, I think it was my favorite, which I didn't expect. When you have De Sica, Fellini, Visconti, Monicelli, I'm less familiar with. Of course, he wrote The Organizer, a great film with Mastroianni, and directed and written many great films, but I'm less familiar with his work. But his first film, Renzo E Lucano, is it's funny but it's so truthful and it's so simple. But we have a married young couple who have to hide that they're getting married, that they're living with their parents in order to save money in these tight spaces, so they can't be alone, they can't have any kind of intimacy. They work in the same workforce, and no one is allowed to date anyone, be married to anyone who works there, or have any children, which is just like absurd and strange rules. So they go about hiding their relationship, and then they have a pregnancy scare, and so they're trying to figure out what to do. And that's basically how they get caught later on, is because she finds out that she's not pregnant, and when they see them hug and kiss at work, it's how they basically get accused of being together. And at first they deny it, but ultimately they say, screw the job, we're hiding, or we can't be together. And the irony is that it cuts later on to when they have everything they want. They're not with their parents. They don't have to hide at work because they don't work there anymore. But now they're not seeing each other anymore, because he works at night and she works in the day, and they're on this mission, this plan to make money and save, and they have all these plans. And sure, that's it's not that stuff isn't important, but I think the film is basically saying, you guys need to be with each other. You guys need to enjoy each other, see each other, and you're so young and you're sacrificing all of your time and energy for all these plans and money. And a lot of this series is a look at love, money, and sex. And this was one that, of course, has this love story because they're married, but it's not about their love necessarily. It's about the fact that they're not sharing in their love, and they love each other, but they're making it less important than everything else. And it's told so simply, and there's not necessarily like him saying, this is just my opinion, because he has the scenes unfold, and there's no one saying you're wrong or you're right, or hey, we need to be together. I'm just seeing it that way because it very much ends with him going to bed and her going to work in the future. And you can't help but wonder, what is this about? And to me, that's really what it's about. So I thought it was wonderful in its simplicity, and I thought it said so much about the nature of how we just do not live. And yes, as I said, those money and work, that's all important. It's essential. But what's even more important is what we do for each other. So I thought that was a wonderful film, Renzo E Lucano. The one after that, I have a hard time pronouncing this one. It was Le Tentazioni del Dottor Antonio. So the translation is The Temptation of Dr. Antonio. And this is by Fellini, and oh my God, it is hilarious. And I figured that the one that we saw in the late 80s, New York Stories, where it was Woody Allen, Martin Scorsese, and Francis Ford Coppola doing a three directors, three films in one, I figured that was inspired by this, but Woody Allen's story was had so many similarities to to Fellini's, because here we see, I love, like, it's done in this surreal and stylized fashion where the opening credits is this very stern looking man. What I love about this is that it starts with the doctor looking right at the camera, and the credits come and they burn in flames. It's like everything that he's seeing. This is a very much showing the changing of what was happening in Italy. That you see the conservative nature of the church, being sex being very taboo, and everything. People have to cover everything up, and you can't say this, you can't say that, and they're afraid of, they see that as the devil, temptations of the devil, and love is for marriage and children, and that's it. So these very, very old fashioned ways of life. And Italy in the 50s was really changing after the war, and we see people embracing sex and embracing their sexuality. Of course, we saw this in the America too, with the hippie movement, and people beginning to question church, question the government. And what happens here is that this guy basically goes around at night, and people parking cars to make out or whatever, and he's trying to stop everybody and send everybody home. And the major dilemma is that there's this big billboard of Anita Ekberg, who, of course, as we all know, was in La Dolce Vita, was this beautiful, voluptuous woman. And they're selling milk, quote unquote. She's holding a glass of milk, and her breasts her cleavage is showing, right? And he's so disgusted by this, because now it's like sex is out in the open. They're even selling milk and have to remind people of sex. I mean, obviously there's a connection with milk and breasts there, which is quite funny, but the reality is that he's actually enjoying this, but he is attracted to her, and he does like the way she's looked, and he denies it. And Fellini does it in such a way, in this beautiful, surrealistic, dreamlike way. At first, he's looking in the mirror, and he just sees her hand come up holding a glass of milk in the reflection, and he turns around and no one's there. And he tries to get city council to take it down, and then he's haunted by it. Every time he looks at it, Anita Ekberg is doing a different expression. She's doing like the devil horns at one point, or she's sticking her tongue out at him, and he's haunted by it. And he goes down there to talk to her at night, and then she steps out of the picture, and she's this large woman, and she towers over him and picks him up, and and he's stuck in between her breasts, and it's, oh my God, it is so funny. And the reality is that he is enjoying this and he's trying not to, and he calls her the devil, and it's tempted by the devil but enjoying it at the same time. And I hate to spoil the ending, but I will, because it's so great how he's basically taken off. They find him in the morning, like on top of the billboard, and people are, oh, he's mentally ill or gone insane, and they bring him to the hospital. It is perfect. It is so funny. I loved it. And it said so much about how people look at sex and as taboo, and everyone else is embracing it. And this guy, because of his prudish nature and the way in which he looks at religion, he thinks that's all devil, that's all seductive, that's the devil coming to get you. And Fellini is basically poking fun at the church, as he did in many films, and I thought, or he criticized the church outright. We certainly saw that in 8½. We saw that in Amarcord, and he does it again here in a very, very funny way, in a very Fellini-esque way. So second one is also fantastic. The third one is called Il Lavoro. This translation is the job. This is Visconti's one. I really like this. At first, I wasn't too sure, because it was about this aristocratic rich guy who lives in this castle, and he's got servants, and he visited prostitutes, and he got caught, and it's in the tabloids, it's in the press, and his lawyers, they're trying to do damage control. And he's like the royal family of the day. He's famous in Italy for being part of this family. And he's so worried about what his wife is going to think. And his wife is Romy Schneider. And no, everyone says that they can't find her. And sure enough, one of the servants says, no, she's here. And what's interesting is she doesn't seem to mind what he did. She doesn't seem to care. And she starts to say that she wants a job. She wants to start working because she went and met these prostitutes herself, and she thought it gave her a new look at life because like both of them have never had to work. They've had everything handed to them. They've been spoiled. And the irony, of course, is that Visconti was from an aristocratic rich family and had everything at his fingertips, and but he became a communist, and often poked fun at himself, the way he was brought up, and these same people who don't need to work. And as he at least is showing in the film, I'm not saying that everybody was like this from these, very, very wealthy aristocratic families, is these people don't want to work either. And her father even tells her she's not capable of working. And her husband is saying he's not going to work. He says it's boring. And there's some funny scenes where they ask the servant, is it really boring? The servants, and they don't really know what to say because they don't want to say that their job is boring because their job is to serve them. But she comes across as very naive, but she really wants this job. She wants to earn money. She respects money. And all of a sudden, that facade, she's saying that they're going to separate, and she seems like it's no big deal, but she's on the phone with her attorney. And actually, Romy Schneider, I must say, I haven't seen her in many films. I don't know her films too well, other than a couple, but she is really fantastic in this. And she's in her early 20s at this point, and she caught the innocence as well as the despair, because there's this beautiful extreme close-up on her where she's on the lawyer and she begins to cry, and she says, we only married because our families wanted us to. And basically, attraction is not enough. And obviously they were attracted to each other. She's gorgeous, of course, Romy Schneider. And you see that the husband is still very attracted to each other because she's getting undressed to go into a bath. And they begin to kiss. They begin to make out. And this really interesting proposition that she makes to him, which was, well, you're going to have to pay me. You want to go visit prostitutes. You don't know if he slept with these prostitutes or not. He says that he knew one of them from when he was a kid, and it was kind of like going back to play with your old toys. So he's comparing people to toys, and it's like, obviously this, again, anything that this guy wants, he can get, that people are toys and are easily accessible. That's the way I saw it anyways. It's a very ambiguous film because the way in which it ends is when he's sort of getting off on the fact that she wants money from him to have sex. And whether he went to prostitutes or not, or whether he just visited them, that's a fantasy of his. I really took it that way. And he agrees to pay her. And when he comes back, that ending is just her crying on the bed. So what does that mean? What does that mean? And I think he's asking, is she doing that because she maybe doesn't think she can work, and the only thing that she can do to make money is to prostitute herself for him? And is that what she feels sad about, or is it because of the end of the marriage? All this is a facade, and she's really devastated by the end of the marriage, and that she's just bullshitting him to test him, to see if he would really come back with the money, or maybe hoping that he would apologize, that he would say, I'm so sorry, I would never, I love you. But this schmuck comes back with all this money in his hands. And so what is that? Or maybe he's asking us both those questions, but it certainly has its tongue-in-cheek qualities, poking fun at these aristocratic families. He later did that in Conversation Piece with Burt Lancaster. And I just thought it was wonderful. And I think every time I see it, I'll see more and more. But Romy Schneider is someone, I have to see more of her films because I thought she was really, really fantastic. The fourth one, and I liked it, but it was my least favorite, and a lot of critics said that this was their favorite, which is interesting. But La Rifa, which means the raffle, this is the one with, of course, Sophia Loren, directed by Vittorio De Sica, and is Cesare Zavattini, who wrote many of his scripts, including Bicycle Thieves, which is behind me here, wrote it. And the highlight, of course, is Loren. I mean, she's the most beautiful I've ever seen in this movie, for one. And we see all those hallmarks of just of really the commitment and the, so she is someone not to be messed with, and she's just got this comic timing and that killer smile, and she's working at this like an amusement park where they're working, and the raffle is for people to win a raffle in order to sleep with her. So that she's with this family and this couple, and they're in trouble with taxes or something, so they need money. And you don't know her history, right? You don't know, but because she's, with them in this trailer, you get the impression, and she's willing to be a prostitute for this big raffle. And of course, because it's Sophia Loren, everybody's buying a ticket and everybody wants to sleep with her and everyone's flirting with her throughout the movie. And so she needs this cash, and what ends up happening is during the story, she meets someone, and it's like love at first sight, this guy, and they have this very passionate kiss and stormy kiss. And then once he finds out about the raffle, he hits her, and it's a devastating scene because she just breaks, but then tosses him aside. And the guy that they cast as the winner is like this. I mean, I hate to insult him, but he was like, not a good looking guy. He's totally bald. He has like an egg-like head about him, but perfect casting from the Sica. And Sophia Loren looks at him and like, oh, she just doesn't know how she's even going to go through with it. And it's interesting because she basically convinces him to take some of the money and leave, and then she'll tell her, you could tell your friends you slept with me, go ahead, right? And everyone's cheering for this guy as he leaves, and not only that, everyone tries to buy his winning ticket from him earlier, and even his mother wants him to sleep with her. It's like you wonder about him. Is he just someone who has never been with anyone, and his mother wants him to find love? They were offering him all this money. He doesn't even answer. He wants to go with Sophia Loren, but he's shy, he's timid, and it's this awkward scene between the two of them. And I love at the end as they're parading him out, and everyone, all the older generations are all, they're screaming at him, vergogna, shame on you. And they just scream back at them, you don't understand. And again, it's that embracing of the new generation, embracing of sex, of lust, of this is the Italy, and you guys are the get out of here, whatever, with your however you see life. That way of life is to this new way of generation is silly. But the only thing that I find doesn't quite hold up is that she gets hit, then she embraces that guy again at the end. He comes back, and to see her get hit and then embrace someone right after the same guy, it's just it feels like it's dated. I mean, I understand back then that was more socially accepted, but nowadays, that's appalling, right? So that's the only part that I didn't quite like, but I do appreciate the message of the new generation and the new look at sex. The new look here we have, like, again, three of the most beautiful women of European cinema at that time: Anita Ekberg, Sophia Loren, and Romy Schneider. And they're not just sex objects in the film, but their appeal is the embracing of sexuality, and that there's nothing quote unquote slutty about it or devilish, or that's just old fashioned. That's just nonsense. What is wrong with two people just making love? I mean, it's a natural act. I think overall, certainly, they all had a lot to say about life, about sex, about love, and new ways of living, and perhaps cautionary ways of like in the first episode, why are you two getting married but yet spending no time with each other? Like it's there has to be a middle ground. So I think it's wonderful. I think it's got some beautiful lessons on life. It asks some really important questions as well. So if you haven't seen it, I highly, highly recommend it. And you can watch it for free on Canopy. And Kino Lorber also has a Blu-ray of it that looks really, really great as well. Thank you so much, folks. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I also have in tier on my Patreon membership, which is dedicated to Italian cinema. You can see it the full details of what I offer in the description box below. Just click on the Patreon link there. And also, if this is your first time on my channel, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the Movies logo. You will see it floating above my head to your top left. Just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new videos or when I go live. Thank you so much, folks. I will see you soon.